Hi there. Today I'm chatting with Melissa Russell, Special Counsel of Speir, just around health and wellbeing and equally just around some of what we've all traversed over the last several months. So good to have you here, Melissa. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Good. Had a very nice weekend. So
Yeah, it was great weather, wasn't it?
it was.
I know, long may it last, although I know we're all praying for a little
It
bit of water.
won't.
Yes. Well, as mentioned, really appreciate your time. And just a couple of questions to start with. Given what we've all been through, and you and I had a little chat previous, what are your overall thoughts? What are you noticing just about kind of the general feel on how we're going and how the economy is tracking?
My general feel was that, and it's changed since we started in lockdown, obviously, but is that I think that New Zealanders have quite a good level of resilience to this kind of crisis. The ability to work together to achieve the common goal, to express different points of view, but not really step out of line. I think that's really good. I think there's been also a lot of positivity. Which has been fantastic, so that you could always go and find somebody to talk to who had a different point of view if you're feeling down or worried about a situation. So I think that was quite good as well.
Yeah, no, I'd agree that there did seem to be a sense of people really pulling together. Yeah. How do you think that might change things then as we start to move? We move through the phases of lockdown and we're now starting to see organisations across the whole sphere start to think about what next. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've only really got an eye into law firms and probably insurance firms. I work a lot for insurers. And I would have to say that those are quite traditional types of professions, but they were actually the first ones to move into that new technology space, so being able to do Zoom and have paperless offices, and the courts really opened up and we were able to file documents online. We were able to file affidavits without actual signatures. They were prepared to accept those for a certain period of time, so I thought that was quite encouraging. I also thought that it was the legal profession and a number of other professions were quite agile in what their focus was. So in our firm, we have certain types of clients that we aim to do business for, but say, for example, I needed to lend my hand to employment law, and I've done that a number of times before, but it's not my bread and butter. And so I saw a lot of people doing that and just mucking in and getting through and getting the work done that needed to be done. So I think those traditional professions weren't as staid and as stale as we thought they might be in their approach to these kinds of things. And I think that probably comes down to a motivation to do things well, but also to keep the economy ticking along and to keep people in the organisation gainfully employed and active, so that no one's time was redundant. And that kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty adaptive.
Yeah, really. I think the people that didn't adapt were the ones that I thought would. For example, people like, the media and things like that. I thought, that's a pretty technologically savvy organisation filled with young people, and yet here they are, still trying to go to press conferences, coming up with stories about no news and things like that. That was quite disappointing. There's nothing to report, and that's our story. So yeah.
No, I'd agree. So the legal landscape, as we know, has been evolving over the last several years anyhow. What are your thoughts about what might be happening over the forthcoming years, with how we have adapted?
Yeah, I think the great thing was the courts operated. I mean, that's my litmus test for how well we're doing, because I do litigation, but other people might be different. For example, property lawyers. I know that a lot of settlements couldn't go through because people couldn't get into certain houses that they'd purchased and things like that. So that was a bit difficult. But they came up with COVID-19 clauses, as did landlords and things like this. And there was a lot of guidance from the government about that. But I think that one of the things people always just get a bit stuck about, especially with students or people who are coming into the profession, is that you can't really get fixated on just the law that you like. So, for example, I love doing litigation and insurance in large cases, but I did have to go back into some of the things that my clients were asking us to do. So the employment law stuff,
Sure.
having a look at leases. And so when you're coming into a profession like this, you might think, oh, I really want to do environment law. Well, perhaps that might not be your first role because the market's not calling for it. So you need to look around, much like the profession is internally, and look for the work that needs to be done rather than the work that you really want to do. So that's one of the, I think that's one of the changes. I went to London in the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, and the only work that was available there was either insurance or insolvency. And so I think that's what a lot of students will face as they come into the profession, doing work that actually needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've spoken, it's that kind of concept of being adaptive, isn't it? And going where you need to go, really.
And you can always, carve a niche out of something. So, say for example, I don't know, maybe you go into litigation and you didn't want to, or maybe you go into property and you didn't really think that that's what you were going to do. There's always aspects of it which you can bring your own interest into, and carve out your own niche. So I don't ever think that people should put their head down and think, oh gosh, that's my lot, because you can always adapt and make it different and make it be special for you. So
totally. So thinking about that, what do you see as some of the challenges that might face law, and equally then some of the opportunities in this sort of future world?
Yes, so I have heard from a number of law grads and law clerks who have said, oh, my contract has been terminated, or my offer of employment hasn't come through, and it should have this time last year. Everyone else has offered this. Some people are re-entering the workforce, for example. People are coming off paternity leave, parental leave. I think the point is that there are going to be some industries which are nervous about employing people full time, and so perhaps that's not what you offer, and it's not what you go out looking for. I think that people need to realise that this is great with COVID, that you can work from home and still be a very important member of a team. You can do work flexibly, you can work part-time, whether that means 4 days, 3 days, 2 days a week, even 1 day a week. I mean, there will be lots of organisations, I think, out there who think, gosh, I really need that bit of research done, but I don't want to pay somebody 5 days a week, and maybe I just want them to contract. So I think that's going to change, that flexibility, which suits quite a few people. I mean, I know I enjoyed having that time to have a walk and make dinner at home, from scratch, and not be running around thinking, gosh, what have I got in the fridge? So there's there's benefits to both sides.
Absolutely. And as you've said, being open-minded and being flexible.
Yes. And the other great thing about being flexible is you can work for a number of organisations. I mean, you might come into this firm and think, oh, gosh, that's the firm for me. Or you might walk into the next firm and think, no, that's the firm for me. So it's quite good to get a breadth of experience with different people.
Very true, Melissa. So the concept of health and well-being, as mentioned, is something that we have embarked on at the College of Law, and worked alongside many law firms around the importance of that. And of course, that came to the fore during COVID. So now that we're starting to hear that be embraced by more and more organisations, what do you feel that as a profession, but as organisations, we can do to enhance that?
I have a personal belief about health and well-being, and that's about expectations and management of time. So when you put yourself under an inordinate amount of pressure, it might not just be the psychological perspective of what you think you've got in front of you, but also learning to use your time and to make sure that you're doing tasks which actually require your attendance. So say, for example, your CPD calendar, which you need to keep updated. Instead of doing it at the mad rush at the end, every time you're watching this webinar today, open up that spreadsheet, put it in. You are looking to, at the end, you might be coming to the end of a job, you might be going overseas, you want to update your CV. Don't sit down for a day and a half trying to think of all the stuff that you've done. Write it down in a little diary, things like that. You just can't record, I don't think, too much information that can ultimately help you. So I think not putting that time pressure on yourself, also learning to say no to things. So whether that be personal or professional, it may not be an absolute no, but just learning to manage people's expectations. I'm not going to have that to you in the next 4 hours because somebody else has asked me to do this. But I think I could do it in the next day or so. Is that all right? And if it's not all right, then as between the partners, you guys need to choose which piece of work is more important. But it's managing that expectation on yourself. And then I think sometimes people, law is full of a lot of perfectionists.
Yes.
I'm not one of them. I don't think. And but doing what you can do and doing it well. So and chunking it up. I think we've got a great motivational speaker who comes into this firm and talks to us about time. But not looking at it, we get essays and things. We think, oh my gosh, all right, 10,000 words on something to do with equity. How boring. But just for example, or trying to chunk it up. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm going to write the introduction. Second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set out the layout. And already you're ahead. You feel like you've done something. So chunking it up a bit, I think, is another way of making things manageable for yourself.
Great tip. So what do you personally do? What have you done over the years that's helped you sustain this great career and manage, a busy home life as well?
Oh, I'm a do as I say, not as I do type person. I think that I'm quite a good communicator. So I have always tried to learn more about the people that I work with. I think that's quite helpful. That starts a conversation off. For example, I've got a colleague who's got a new puppy dog, so do I. Things like that. I know they might be small, but they connect you, and I think it's important to connect with your colleagues. You don't need to like them all the time. I mean, I've been through that, but you do need to understand and get on with them. And through that, the communication means that sometimes you can say, oh, I've got this thing to do this weekend, it's just so much. And someone might say, oh, I've done that before. You don't actually need to do it that way. Always ask for help. You don't need to ask for help in the I need help type way. You can just mention it and say, oh, this is stressing me out or something like that. And then I think the other thing to do is to have very clear times. I get mother's guilt. I'm sure there are people out there who get father's guilt. But when I'm at work, I'm at work, and I have very good help, daycare and things like that. I put a lot on my partner, my husband, to do things. And when I'm at home, I'm at home. So I will check my telephone in the weekends 3 times a week. 3 times in that day, and that's it. Right. Because otherwise, you're kind of neither here nor there, are you? So very
true. That whole concept, you're right, of being present. If you're here, be here. And I appreciate, with technology, etc., it's very easy to those lines blur.
Yes. It's just also interruptions. So for every time, and I do it at work as well, I will check my email 5 to 6 times a day, and no more. I've taken the ping thing off, and, ping, there's an email. Yes. Because you never get your head down into something. And you are able to get your head down at university because the library's quiet and all that, but we don't seem to give ourselves that chance when we're in the professional world. We think we have to react instantaneously, and we do not. So,
spot on. So, final question. Lots of great tips, but what would be one of your, or be perhaps your single biggest learning through the recent experiences that you would like to take forward?
I found it quite interesting. You either have that fight or flight mode. There are a lot of people around me in the profession who were very panicky. We'll never fly again. We'll never go into the office again. The world has changed. We'll never appear at court again, and things like that. I think you need to have a certain level of self-belief that people have a need and a want to be together, and that people want to get back to how we were working. I mean, not everything, we still need to have a bit of distance at work. We need to wash our hands more and things like that. I think that's a good learning from it. But don't listen too much to the pessimists. They do seem to scream the loudest, but you need to be your own cheerleader and your own optimist, I think, and because people look for that. They may not say that they do. We're all a bit tall poppy and all that kind of thing in New Zealand. We can get down on ourselves, but I think people do look for the positivity, not naivety, but a bit of positivity. So I would say try to be as positive as you can, because it rubs off, and sometimes you just have to act as if, and then you'll feel it a bit later on. But don't bring yourself down just for the sake of it.
Really good point, and a great place to finish. I think that context of holding optimism and being realistic, but it is contagious, and so the importance of being able to continue that through. Hey, Melissa, it's been really great chatting to you. Thank you for all those.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no.
And I'm always very disappointed with people who don't have iPods and have these things, but my daughter stole mine this morning and I can only find one. So that's my excuse. I'm not technologically illiterate or anything.
You've done very well. But thank you very much. Keep doing what you're doing. Great advice.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And that's me signing off.